Hello wild vibers, Vibes of a Wildlife here. Welcome to another video where we dive into the heart, humor, and unexpected life lessons from the animal kingdom. Ever felt that pull to just not deal? Like if you ignore the problem long enough, it might pack up and leave on its own? Bills piling up, relationship tension, that awkward email you've been meaning to get to? Yeah, that moment when you think, if I don't look at it, it can't hurt me. Congratulations, you, my friend, have mastered what we lovingly call the Ostrich Approach. Classic denial, a little cozy, a little reckless, but oddly relatable. Now here's the twist, the entire thing, the metaphor we've built around pretending everything's fine by shoving our heads in the sand, ostriches don't even do that. Nope, the bird we turned into the poster child for avoidance has been misunderstood this whole time. And trust me, they'd probably like a word. Before we get into it, go ahead and like this video if you've ever put off a problem longer than you care to admit, subscribe if you're into animal truth with a side of life lessons, and if you know someone currently deep in avoidance mode, be a friend, share this with them. Alright, let's dig into how this whole head in the sand thing even started, because like most bad habits, it came from somewhere. So let's talk about where this whole ostrich with his head in the sand idea came from, because surprise, it wasn't born in a modern self-help book. This myth actually goes way back, all the way to ancient Rome. Roman naturalists, basically early day animal bloggers with scrolls, were observing ostriches from a distance. They'd see them lowering their heads to the ground and assumed they were burying them out of fear. Now, were these the most accurate observers? Let's just say their fact-checking wasn't on point. Here's the truth. Ostriches don't bury their heads. That would be a terrible survival strategy for a bird that's already working with limited flight options. What they do is rotate their eggs with their beaks and sometimes lie low with their necks stretched out flat. From a distance, yeah, it kind of looks like they're pulling a disappearing act, but they're not hiding, they're handling their business. Still, the image stuck. Why? Because it hit a little too close to home. It gave us a visual, a funny, almost cartoonish one for something we've all done, avoiding the email, dodging the hard conversation, pretending everything's fine when it's absolutely not. We didn't just accept the metaphor, we ran with it, because it gave our denial a mascot. Okay, so the bird's been falsely accused. Justice for ostriches. But now, let's flip the lens, because when real danger shows up, these birds don't freeze, they do something that might surprise you. Alright, let's set the record straight. Ostriches don't hide, they run. And not in a panic and flail kind of way. I'm talking 43 miles per hour of pure, focused, long-legged strategy. That's not avoidance, that's a calculated escape plan. And if you can sprint out of awkward situations like that, you probably would too. And let's be honest, half the time, we're not avoiding danger, we're dodging discomfort. The ostrich? It runs when it needs to, not just when things get mildly inconvenient. And get this, those legs, not just for show. An ostrich kick can kill a lion. Let me say that again, a lion. That's not a bird with self-esteem issues, that's a bird that came prepared. They're not out here burying their heads and hoping the bad stuff goes away. They're making decisions, when to stand tall, when to bolt, and when to drop low and blend in with the land like a feathery ninja. Because yeah, sometimes they do lie low, but that's not freezing in fear, it's camouflage, strategic stillness, like, you're not worth the energy right now, so I'm gonna disappear into the landscape until it's smart to move. That's not shutting down, that's playing the long game. So, if the ostrich isn't actually the avoidant one, maybe we've been projecting this whole time. Maybe, just maybe, the real creature of denial is us. Now let's bring it back to us, the human ostriches. Because here's the truth, avoidance isn't always bad, sometimes it's survival. When life hits too hard, too fast, the brain steps in and says, hey, let's not think about that right now. And honestly, that's a gift, a mental pause button, a little buffer so you don't emotionally combust. That's not denial, that's self-preservation. And ostriches, they get that. They don't panic every time something moves in the grass. They assess, they wait. Despite being the largest bird on the planet, they've got no wings for flying, but they've evolved a playbook built on conservation of energy. They don't waste effort flailing over every potential threat. They pause, they scan, then they act. That's not laziness, that's wisdom. But when that pause becomes your default, that's when quiet chaos creeps in. You stop opening emails, stop having the hard talks, start walking around with tension you can't name, all because your brain's been filing stuff under later for way too long. And suddenly, you're overwhelmed by a to-do list that isn't even written down. It's just floating around in your head, buzzing like background static. And here's where it gets sneaky. Your brain doesn't forget the stuff you ignore, it flags it. Unfinished problems get filed as incomplete threats. And just like an ostrich that lays too long in stillness becomes vulnerable, the human mind that delays too long ends up running on constant alert. That's how "I'll deal with it tomorrow" quietly becomes "Why am I always on edge?" You're not running, but your stress is. So what's the balance? Is there ever a time to look away, to hit pause without hitting self-destruct? Let's talk about that. Here's where it gets real. Not all avoidance is bad. In fact, some of it is smart. Walking away from an argument before you say something reckless, that's not denial, that's discipline. Choosing not to reply to a message when you're heated, that's emotional intelligence in action. Strategic avoidance is a tool. It's you saying, "I'm not ignoring this, I'm just not about to deal with it at my worst." Even ostriches get this. If they sense danger but don't see a clear escape, they'll crouch low, blend into the terrain, and wait. That's not panic, that's patience with a plan. But then there's the other side, that slow fade, the ghosting, the "if I don't talk about it, it'll disappear" approach. That's when avoidance stops being smart and starts digging a hole. Ostriches check their nest daily, actively managing their environment. But us, we'll let a whole situation rot under the surface and call it peace. Avoid a tough talk long enough, and suddenly you're not avoiding a moment, you're avoiding the entire relationship. And trust me, what grows in silence isn't always healing. Sometimes it's resentment with a smile on. Mental health pros have a name for this. Experiential avoidance is when you dodge thoughts, feelings, memories, anything uncomfortable, like their threats. And yeah, it works in the short term, but the long term, it chips away at you. You end up exhausted, confused, and disconnected, not just from others, but from yourself. Ostriches don't do that. If a threat keeps circling, they don't pretend it's not there. They respond. They rise, they run, or they defend. What they don't do is pretend it'll fix itself while they sit still. And here's another twist. Facing things isn't about force. It's not about charging in like you've got it all figured out. It's about timing and truth, knowing when to rise, when to rest, and when to act. So let's talk about how we do that. How to face what's real without losing your balance in the process. So what does the ostrich actually teach us? First off, when danger's real, move. Don't overthink it. Don't debate with yourself for 5 hours. Just act. Ostriches can sprint through desert windstorms, dodging predators and chaos with that wild 43 miles per hour stride. They don't wait around hoping the threat changes its mind. They assess, then they go. And sometimes that's the move we need too. When a boundary's crossed, when your peace is under fire, when your gut is screaming, "This ain't it," that's your sprint moment. Don't freeze, don't fumble. Run towards what protects you, even if that means away from what no longer does. Now, there are times when stillness makes sense. An ostrich lying low in the grass isn't giving up. It's choosing calm over chaos. And for us, sometimes sitting in silence, taking a walk, breathing before reacting, that's powerful. But here's the key. Stillness is a pause, not a plan. You can take a moment, you can reset. But don't fool yourself into thinking that inactivity equals resolution. If a roof's leaking, sitting quietly in the living room doesn't fix the drip. Eventually, you've got to get up and patch it. And maybe this is the real lesson. It's never been about burying your head. It's about knowing when to lift it. To look life in the face and say, "I see it, I feel it, and I'm not running from it anymore." Ostriches don't avoid life, they navigate it. Not with shame, not with fear, but with clarity, speed, and presence. And if they can do all that without flight, what's our excuse? Let's wrap this up. Because denial might feel safe in the moment, but clarity, that's where the freedom is. So here's the takeaway, plain and simple. Denial ain't just a desert bird. Ostriches aren't afraid of problems. They don't hide from what's coming. And you don't have to either. The myth we've been sold is cute, sure. But the truth, that's smarter. That's stronger. Ostriches handle their environment with awareness, not avoidance. And maybe that's the move we've been missing. Not to escape, but to engage with intention. Avoidance might buy you a little peace for a little while, but clarity, that's what buys you freedom. That's what lets you breathe, move, and live on your own terms. If this made you pause and rethink your own ostrich moments, do me a favor, hit that like button, share this with someone who's been dodging their own truth, and subscribe for more wildlife wisdom that hits deeper than you would expect. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, the next time you feel like burying your head in the sand, maybe just take a breath and face the wind instead.